WisconsinEye's Campaign 2024 programming is sponsored by Wisconsin Counties Association, Nicolet National Bank, Wisconsin Hospital Association, Operating Engineers Local 139, the Wisconsin Realtors Association, the Wisconsin Laborers District Council, and North Central State's Regional Council of Carpenters. To support programs like this, please consider a tax-deductible donation at wiseye.org/donate or by texting WisEye to 44321.
Representative Jill Billings of La Crosse is the Democratic incumbent candidate for the 95th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. Representative Billings, welcome to WisconsinEye.
It's nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for participating in our candidate interviews. What is your campaign's key message? Why are you running for re-election?
Our key message is really working together to improve the quality of lives for the people that I represent.
And what's an example of a bill that would be a priority for you to introduce if you're reelected?
It's hard to pick one, but I think for my district, it would have to be comprehensive addressing PFAS. I have folks in my district out on French Island that have been drinking bottled water for 3 years. So I think we need to take a comprehensive look at this issue and start with making sure that not as many PFAS or no PFAS are entering our environment. And from there, looking at groundwater standards, drinking water standards, surface water standards, and then making sure that we know who is suffering from PFAS around the state. This is something that's odorless and it's colorless. So people didn't even know on French Island that they were drinking PFAS for a while. And then I think we need to capture federal dollars, and we're doing some of that, but more of it is needed to address people's issues with their wells, with their private wells, helping if people are building municipal systems now to try to have fewer people on those private wells. That's
a key
I think
priority
that's what I
for
would
you.
do, because it would save lives, and people who end up suffering from cancer, infertility, other effects of PFAS.
So if you are reelected, you know you're entering during a biennial budget year, and the state has projected over $3 billion surplus. What would be your top two priorities for use of that surplus funding?
I think my top priority, as was last time, is a sustainable tax break for folks, especially the middle class. I feel like our working middle class families have more on their shoulders, and they need some relief. So I would especially focus there, and maybe some seniors. I know some seniors are doing fine. My mom's doing okay. But I've also talked to people who've contacted my office who are struggling paying utility bills. Some woman in a trailer court who kept her heat at 58 degrees. And so those people need help and relief, and my office was able to help her, but that's in my mind as I look at one thing I would do with the extra funds. I think the other thing I would do is invest in education. We have a proud tradition of public education, and I think from early childhood ed to K-12 to higher education, I want to maintain that good reputation.
You mentioned this K-12 education as part of your priority here. It is also a leading issue with many voters. What's going well in K-12 education, and what really needs to be changed?
As I visit our schools and talk with our administrators, I think we have really good people who are involved in education in Wisconsin. And they're all trying to row in the same direction in schools, and the work that's being done by our teachers really has to be commended. So I think that's going well. I think we have to make sure that we keep our workforce. Here at UWL, we train a lot of teachers, and I'm invited into the classes every year, which is wonderful. And I hear from them how difficult it is sometimes to make sure that they get their education when they do their in-classroom experiences. They don't get paid for that. Some have to drive, 45 minutes away or longer, and that's their own gas money. So I think to give a stipend to some of those teachers, encouraging people to go into the field. We know after Act 10 and with the baby boom curve, more people are retiring, and we need to encourage smart, young, energetic people to be part of that field and feel like they're really valued.
This leads into my next question, higher education, Wisconsin's system of 4-year colleges, 2-year colleges, technical colleges. What does that future in that system look like to you, and how should the legislature focus?
President Rothman has really done a good job of getting the message out the last couple months of the lack of funding from the state in our UW system. So I think we're 43rd in the country for funding our system schools. In the 60s, we were funding our school well. We were actually taking departments and professors from other Big Ten schools and high-ranking schools to bring them to Wisconsin. It was such a favorable situation. Now in La Crosse, instructors can go across the bridge up half an hour to Winona. They don't even have to take their kids out of their school district, and they can make a lot more money working in Minnesota. So I think that we need to make sure that we're investing in higher education, and also that includes tech colleges. We just had an incredible event last week where the Warnock family, who owns Ashley Furniture, gave it the biggest donation to our tech college that we've received in its history, and to create an innovative center. And some of that will come from the state, more from the private investment. And I love that public-private partnership. And it's looking at innovations in the future, and working with AI and manufacturing, and how we have a good workforce in the future. That was an exciting day.
Speaking of workforce, what do you see as the state's largest workforce development challenge, and how would you propose to address it?
I think it's demographics. Whether I talk to people in healthcare or in education, manufacturing, certainly the hospitality industry, people are looking for workers, and our unemployment is low, so we know people are working. We just have to bring more people to Wisconsin, and part of that is selling Wisconsin. I mean, once people get here, for example, if someone comes here for higher education, they're likely to stay because this is such an incredible place to live. We have good schools, we've got the arts, we have beautiful outdoors, we have, for the most part, very clean water. Looking toward the future, I think Wisconsin just looks like a better and better place to live.
Is there a public policy that addresses this worker challenge?
Well, I think some of it is to help with training. I mean, I think we can start earlier. I love the apprentice programs that are happening in high school. So kids, like I had a brother who, high school wasn't his favorite thing, but give him some on-the-job kind of apprenticeship work, and he was in heaven. That was his future. He didn't want to go to a 4-year university, and he's built a very great life with his career. And so I think part of it is doing that, making sure that people who don't want to go to higher education can get that apprenticeship work in high school, and schools are doing great stuff with that. Also, again, funding our higher education to have a really qualified, good workforce.
A few more workforce questions for you. Investments in public and energy infrastructure grow our state's economy. This also provides an opportunity to invest in our state's workforce, but currently there are no requirements for hiring local workers. Would you support a state resident hiring requirement for state, local, and utility scale infrastructure investments?
Yes. And that is, I think that's a good idea. Our tax dollars are going to pay for a lot of that. And so when we hire locally, that money stays in Wisconsin. And so it cycles through our economy in a better way than paying workers who are not from here. Whenever possible. Now, I know there's some specialty areas that we may have to look outside of Wisconsin. There should be some flexibility with that. But even, I'm on the State Building Commission, when I see those big building projects that we do, whether it's an education building, a state office building, work at our state parks, I like to see that money. I like to see hiring local people and that money stay here in our state.
Employee classification is an issue in the construction industry. Some employers misclassify workers as independent contractors or pay them in cash off the books. This lowers costs by avoiding payroll taxes and unemployment insurance, and it puts compliant companies at a disadvantage when bidding on projects. Plus, misclassified workers may be denied minimum wage protections or overtime pay. Are you aware of this issue, and what do you think should be done about it?
I am aware of the issue. I think that there's a fairness issue here, right? And also following the law. And so people should be on the books. They should get all the benefits that are coming toward them.
Housing. Affordable rental housing is an issue in Wisconsin. Some support government-imposed rent control to maintain affordability, while others argue keeping rent artificially low will decrease rental supply, resulting in increased prices. What is your sense of housing as an issue, and which best addresses rental housing affordability? Is it rent control or building more rentals or other?
I think it depends. We live in a state that has varied housing needs. The issues up in Door County with tourism and people from outside the area buying properties and then needing, they have a lack of workforce housing up there, is different than a city down here in southwest Wisconsin where we have over half of our community as rentals, and we need more family housing in La Crosse. So I think it's very nuanced. I think, rent control has had some success, some issues in places like New York where people are living in these incredibly artificially low rental situations. I think it depends, and I think we need to take a more in-depth look. That's a hard question to answer in 2 minutes.
Do you support some incentives from the legislature?
I do. I think we need to encourage builders to build more affordable housing. How many McMansions can we really support in this state? And I know that that is sort of the frosting on the cake for builders, right? They make more from those projects, so I understand why that's very tempting for them. But I think we need more varied housing and more affordable housing, and part of that comes from builders.
Transitioning to healthcare, medical systems are facing numerous headwinds in the form of inflation, workforce development, and issues around Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, resulting in fewer services and even the closure of a hospital system in western Wisconsin.
Yes.
What would you do to preserve access to care and prevent future closures?
A few things regarding the hospital closure in Wisconsin. There's money sitting in joint finance that should be out in our communities to help with emergency rooms, maternal care, those type of services that are so important and expensive for hospitals. Medicaid, Medicare reimbursement can be increased. We should accept Medicaid dollars. I mean, I've been fighting for this for years, and we're leaving billions of our taxpayer dollars on the table when we don't expand. And we're one of the few states now, maybe one or two, who haven't accepted Medicaid expansion. And that just is ridiculous. That is not good governing. We've got to fix that. With workforce, healthcare workforce, I know that's an issue. We have Mayo and formerly Gunderson, now Amplify, in our community, and I know that's an issue. So we have to do better. I appreciate that the governor, under the leadership of the lieutenant governor, did a workforce, healthcare workforce task force with stakeholders, and they toured facilities all over the state. They've come up with their results, and I think it's really positive that Democrats and Republicans that do that kind of healthcare legislation have said there are some good ideas here. And so we need to go forward with that when we reorganize in January.
What about mental health care? That's also a challenge in state and county budgets and for many Wisconsinites individually. What are you hearing about that as an issue, and what are some of the solutions?
Mental health is a huge issue for me, especially as a ranking member on children and family, mental health of children. And the Office of Children's Mental Health has done a kind of a work group that I'm part of. I know Representative Snyder, my partner on children and family, my Republican partner on children and families, he's been part of this too, and really looking at initiatives, things that we can do to help kids with mental health coming out of COVID. It's really disturbing to see how many kids self-identify as feeling anxious or depressed or lonely, like they don't belong. So we're working on initiatives for that. We also can do more just with workforce again, with healthcare providers. We need more mental health providers in our schools.
How should Wisconsin move forward on abortion policy?
I believe and have believed firmly for a while that this is a decision between a woman and her doctor, a partner, or faith provider if she has one. There's no place for me in that examining room as a government official, and I should not be a part of that decision.
You don't support a number of weeks as a limit on abortion?
No, it's between a woman and her doctor. We've seen horror stories of what's happened now with the Dobbs decision.
Transitioning to transportation. What are the pressing transportation needs in your district, and how important is it that these are addressed, and for the state to keep on schedule with reconstruction of aging interstates and significant corridors of commerce?
Well, in my new district, I have a lot more rural area, and I've heard a lot about transportation in those rural areas, and I was happy that the governor had his ARIP, the Agricultural Road Improvement Project, and that was $50 million was released to communities to help get agricultural products to market and help in rural areas, and that's for culverts, bridges, and roads. I was so happy to see that. I've driven on some of those alligator roads now in my new district, and I see and have felt in my car what people are talking about. And I think that should continue. There was a lot of demand for that project. Not all projects were included, and there's more we can do. So I think that's an exciting improvement. I know the governor's done better, as he said from the point he was elected, let's fix the damn roads, and we have done better. There's more work to be done. I appreciate that the Biden administration has put more into infrastructure to help with roads and bridges. And finally, mass transit. In La Crosse, we just had a day without a car. I couldn't do it because of my new district. I had to have to drive 35, 45 minutes away to knock on doors and talk to folks in my district. But it was a good point to sort of stop and think, what if I couldn't get a license? Like my elderly mom can't get a license anymore because of her vision. What if I was someone who had special needs and couldn't drive a car? We have to think of those folks too and make sure we have a secure mass transit system to get people where they need to go, doctors and work and all that stuff.
You started our interview saying PFAS is a priority for you in your campaign. Is there anything more you want to say about that and or the environment and issues that are a priority for you?
Mm-hmm. Well, preserving the environment. We just got a Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund money here that I helped advocate for our Outdoor Recreation Alliance property just outside of town that's set aside now. It's a huge, wonderful outdoor classroom. It's still on the bus line. It's close enough to city so that kids will be able to go out there. And instead of it being developed, it's preserved for future generations, and that is so important. So I'm excited about that with our environment, making sure we maintain places for people to enjoy and appreciate and value our environment. And the work that the ORA folks did here was just fabulous. That's an incredible project in my area. But yes, PFAS, as I said before, we've got to do a comprehensive addressing of it. I think that Republicans and Democrats had issues or had different bills, and we both want to address it. We just have to find a way to come together. And last spring, I had Republicans in my office, and we were sitting down talking about it. We need to do more of that as we reorganize, sit down together without lobbyists or press or anyone in the room and find some common ground and go forward on this.
We're down to our last two questions, and related to that point, how would you describe the leading differences between you and your Republican opponent?
Well, I would probably say my experience, number one, where I have 13 years in the Assembly, I have staff that's been there for 13 years. So when people call my office and need help, I have staff who's experienced at helping people get the help that they need. And I'm proud of our constituent relations there and the work my staff does. And I am somebody who has reached across the aisle from day one when I got elected just post-Act 10 in a difficult time. And I did what I did on the county board. I didn't really look at Democrats and Republicans. I just met people and found people that where we had common interests and we could work together to get things done. The governor signed 3 of my bills last spring, and I'm in the minority. And the only way I got those through was by finding my champions on the Republican side and get people from both sides to sign on to my bills. And so I work hard, but it's good work to bring people together, to get something done. All 3 of those bills were asked for by people in my district. And it feels good when you can do something to help people that you represent.
Final question for you. So let's say you're reelected this fall. You get this magic wand you can use in the state capitol to resolve one issue in a way that brings all parties together. What's the issue?
I can only have one issue. Well, there's several things that I'm already working on, not without a magic wand. But I think it would have to be, again, PFAS, because that's so important for the health of the people I represent. And I feel like we're a bit of the way down the road, but if we had that magic wand and could come together, we could really have some success on that issue that's been sitting out there for too long.
All right. Thank you, Representative Jill Billings of La Crosse, the Democratic incumbent candidate for the 95th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. Representative Billings, thank you for talking with WisconsinEye.
Thank you.
This programming is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Thank you for watching.